Republicans have a plan for a sweeping overhaul of the nation's immigration system if Trump wins the presidency. And I've got to tell you, it's going to be disastrous for immigrants. The people advising Trump, who has said he will carry out mass deportations and who previously enacted the Muslim ban, have come up with a detailed policy proposal for how the government will craft and carry out anti-immigrant policies meant to alter the very makeup of American society. In this video, I'm going to tell you about Republicans' 12-point plan for changing the United States from being a nation of immigrants to one that pushes them away. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, I help immigrants all over the country secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum case pending or are considering applying. I'd especially like to hear from you if you've been waiting for an asylum interview for multiple years. While Trump's first term was marked by aggressive rhetoric and attempts at sweeping changes to immigration policy, many of his most extreme measures were ultimately blocked by courts or floundered due to poor planning and execution. The chaos and incompetence that characterized his administration often hindered the implementation of his harshest immigration agenda items. However, the landscape has shifted. Unlike in 2016, Trump now has the full backing of the Republican establishment, including seasoned policy experts and strategists, people who can probably actually push through an anti-immigrant agenda. And we know what this will probably look like because Trump is armed with a comprehensive blueprint known as Project 2025, a meticulously crafted playbook for reshaping American immigration policy. Indeed, gone are the days of hastily drafted executive orders and legally dubious policy memos. Instead, we're facing the prospect of well-researched, carefully constructed policies designed to withstand judicial scrutiny and bureaucratic resistance. With competent staffers and advisors at his disposal, Trump's administration would be far better equipped to turn anti-immigrant rhetoric into tangible, far-reaching policy changes. The policies outlined in Project 2025 represent a cohesive, strategic approach to dramatically restricting both legal and illegal immigration. If implemented, these measures could fundamentally alter the fabric of American society, potentially closing doors that have been open for generations. Here are 12 steps Republicans want to take when it comes to immigration. Stick with me to the end, because the last two are particularly egregious. Number 1. Finish the border wall. Trump would likely push to complete construction of the physical barrier along the US-Mexico border. This would involve securing significant funding from Congress and potentially declaring national emergencies to reallocate funds. The project would face legal challenges, particularly regarding land acquisition through eminent domain. Environmental concerns and the impact on wildlife would also be contentious issues. Building the wall is something Trump promised to do in his first campaign, but of course, didn't get done. He also promised that Mexico would pay for it. Our southern neighbor hasn't paid a dime, and there's no indication it will do so in the future. All right, number 2. Reinstate Remain in Mexico. This policy would require asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their cases are processed in U.S. courts. Implementation would involve negotiations with the Mexican government and could strain diplomatic relations. Human rights organizations would likely challenge the policy, citing safety concerns for migrants in border towns. To be sure, the areas near the border are exceedingly dangerous. The logistics of managing court appearances for asylum seekers in Mexico would be complex and costly. This program was previously in place for a while, but it was blocked by the courts as illegal. It definitely made life hard on immigrants who were waiting in perilous conditions in Mexico, and there were reports that some people never got word that their hearing in the US had been scheduled, so they missed it. Okay, next up on Republicans' immigration wish list per their Project 2025 playbook, number 3. Expand expedited removal. Republicans want to speed up deportations for those who enter illegally or fail asylum screenings known as credible fear interviews. This could involve applying expedited removal throughout the entire U.S., not just within 100 miles of the border. It might also extend to individuals who have been in the country for up to 2 years, rather than just 14 days. These expedited removals have the goal of getting people out of the country as fast as possible, and don't afford people the right to fully explain their case in immigration court. The credible fear interview at the heart of this process is a brief talk with an asylum officer, usually by phone, right after a person comes to the United States, and usually no evidence is accepted. When I was an asylum officer with the government, I personally carried out many of thousands. I think it was in the thousands, and can tell you that it does not give asylum seekers a fair chance to state their case. The proposed expansion of this program thus increases the risk of wrongful deportations. With that, we're ready for number 4. Tighten asylum standards. Republicans aim to narrow the criteria for asylum, making it harder for migrants to qualify. This could include requiring more specific evidence of persecution or limiting grounds for asylum claims. The administration might try to exclude gang violence or domestic abuse as bases for asylum. Some of this would require actual changes to the law, but some can be done just with executive action. The executive branch of government, led by the president, has wide latitude in interpreting the immigration laws and can craft policies to advance a particular agenda. Trump did some of these last time he was in office. Many of the changes were blocked by courts or undone once Biden assumed office. In any event, the changes envisaged for Trump's next go-around could significantly reduce the number of successful asylum applications. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and bell notification so you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. Okay, that brings us to number 5 on the list. End the so-called catch and release program. This would involve detaining more migrants rather than releasing them into the U.S. while awaiting hearings. You see, at present, the government aims to detain all asylum seekers unless and until they actually win their asylum case. Like, their asylum proceedings are meant to happen while they are still detained. But due to a lack of bed space and other resource constraints, the government simply can't hold all of them. So the government releases many of these people, some of them with ankle bracelets used to monitor them, and they go to their immigration court hearings in a non-detained setting. Trying to detain everyone for the entire duration of their asylum proceedings would require a massive expansion of detention facilities and massively increased funding for immigration and customs enforcement. The policy would face criticism over conditions in detention centers and the impact of prolonged detention on migrants' mental health. Legal challenges could arise based on due process concerns. And now, number 6. Increase Border Patrol staffing. Republicans advocate for hiring thousands more Border Patrol agents to try to stop illegal crossings at the southern border. This would require significant budget increases and could take years to implement due to rigorous training requirements. The expansion would involve not just frontline agents but also support staff and infrastructure. Critics might argue that technology investments could be much more cost-effective than personnel increases. All right, number 7. Deploy the military to the border. Trump might again use military personnel to support border operations. This could involve tasks like construction, surveillance, and logistical support. The move would likely face opposition from military leaders concerned about readiness and training impacts. Legal experts would question the legality of using the military for domestic law enforcement, which obviously isn't what the military is intended for. The potential for conflict between the U.S. military and state law enforcement authorities and National Guard units is also a concern. Next up, number 8. Put pressure on sanctuary cities. Expect renewed efforts under Republicans' plan to withhold federal funding from cities that don't cooperate with immigration enforcement, that is, sanctuary cities, as the political right has dubbed them. These are cities that refuse to have their law enforcement help federal immigration agents do their job, which of course goes beyond the scope of what local law enforcement is intended for. These include the largest U.S. cities, which are led by Democrat mayors: New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago. The administration might even seek to criminalize sanctuary policies at the federal level. This strategy would face legal challenges based on the 10th Amendment and principles of federalism. Okay, we're at number 9. Create agreements with Central American countries to try to get them to accept people who seek asylum in the United States. Republicans want to expand so-called safe third country agreements. The idea here is that we would just send to them people who come to the United States seeking asylum. This could involve pressuring more countries to accept asylum seekers, potentially offering aid or trade benefits as incentives. Critics would argue that these countries lack the resources to safely host asylum seekers. The policy could face challenges under international refugee law. The Trump administration struck agreements along these lines with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, but the programs never really got off the ground. They were terminated by the Biden administration. Next up, number 10. Implement an extreme vetting program. This would involve more rigorous background checks for all immigrants and visitors. It could include enhanced social media screening, ideological tests, and increased information sharing with foreign governments. To be clear, the United States already does extensive security checks on asylum seekers and all others coming to the United States. I say this with experience, having personally been involved in this process both as an asylum officer with the Department of Homeland Security and as a visa officer with the Department of State. Privacy advocates would likely challenge the extent of data collection envisaged under any extreme vetting policy. The program could lead to longer processing times for immigration cases. All right, we're almost there. Number 11, reduce legal immigration. There will be a push to limit family-based immigration and so-called diversity visas. This could involve eliminating certain categories of family sponsorship or reducing annual quotas. A Trump administration might propose a points-based system favoring high-skilled immigrants. Such changes would face opposition from business groups reliant on immigrant labor and would mark a sharp departure from the primary goal of U.S. immigration policy for many decades: family reunification. To be sure, Trump was able to drastically reduce legal immigration during his term in office. Many fear it will be much worse if he's given another chance. And finally, number 12. End birthright citizenship. Some Republicans want to challenge the 14th Amendment's guarantee of citizenship to those born on U.S. soil. This would likely involve an executive order interpreting the 14th Amendment differently, followed by inevitable court challenges. The case would likely reach the Supreme Court, potentially leading to a landmark decision on citizenship rights. If successful, it would represent the most significant change to U.S. immigration law in history. Listen, it's crucial to understand that the threat posed to asylum seekers and to the immigration system in general is not just theoretical. With a more organized and experienced team behind him, Trump could succeed where he previously failed, turning his vision of a closed America into a reality. With this reality potentially ahead of us in the very near future, you need expert guidance in your asylum case. That's why we, at Political Asylum Lawyers, exist.
If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then please call my office today. Remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.